Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about fall book recommendations. These are personally some of my favorite videos to watch because I just love the months of fall. They're so cozy and I always get to kind of branch outside of my comfort zone when it comes to genres I enjoy. So I read a lot more mystery thrillers than I normally do throughout the year, and I just love the mood of fall. Like just getting to read with a blanket, it's just so cozy and so wholesome, and they're genuinely my favorite months of the year. I personally have a lot of really great books that I'm looking forward to reading this year, and I know there's a lot of really good books that I've already read that have given me kind of that fall feeling. They don't necessarily revolve around the months of fall or are set in the months of fall. Some of them are. However, they just kind of gave me that cozy feeling that I was looking for, that I would want to read in a cozier month or a spooky season. So if you're interested in hearing any of those book recommendations, stick around and let's get on into it. The first book I'm going to talk about today is Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson. I read this one last year and it was a really cute romance about this girl. Her name is Phoebe and she is obsessed with true crime. True crime? Like anything involving true crime, that's immediately a fall book to me. But anyways, in this book, she is actually analyzing the genre of true crime for her dissertation because she is a PhD candidate. And at the time while she's doing this, she actually moves back to her childhood home in Florida because her father passes away. And her younger brother are going through the house and just trying to clean it out so that way they can eventually sell the house. I just really enjoyed the relationship between Phoebe and her little brother. I thought it was so cute and I really enjoyed like their banter between each other. And at the time while she is cleaning out her childhood home, she keeps having these weird encounters with her new neighbor, Sam. The whole time during this book, she thinks that he is a serial killer. She has like this mini checklist in her head of what a serial killer does and what like their tics are. And so she's kind of an overly cautious person. And in this book, she immediately thinks her neighbor Sam is up to something weird, just weird stuff that happens around the neighborhood. She immediately begins to suspect that he is a serial killer. Like it says in the title, this is a love story. It is a romance. So obviously her feelings will eventually change, but she is definitely the kind of person who's very closed off when it comes to love. So I really enjoyed this book and getting to see her branch out of herself and try it out with someone, and it's actually very funny. Just the whole concept behind it, whenever I read the title, I immediately hooked me, and I just think it's a really fun and easy read for this fall. The next book I'm going to be recommending in this video is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This was such a funny, cute little rom-com type book. And what this book is about this girl who is a ghostwriter for a famous romance author. And so when she is living in the big city, she ends up getting a phone call from home and her father passes away. So just like in the last book, she ends up going back home to help plan his funeral. And what's different about this book was her family, they run a funeral parlor. So immediately that was just like a very interesting concept to me, like getting to see the behind the scenes of what that would be like to own and run a funeral parlor, because you would be around death and grieving people all day long. And so she ends up going back home to help with the funeral, and when she is there, she ends up running into a ghost. Yes, our main character can see ghosts, and he has unfinished business. But what's different about this ghost is it is actually her editor back from the city. And so when he is here, she ends up helping him. They go on this wild adventure to try to figure out what happened to him and what his unfinished business is, so that way he can finally be laid to rest. So it was a very cute and fun romance book. I really enjoyed this, and I think this is perfect for fall. The next book that I'm going to recommend is The X Hex by Erin Sterling. This was a very cute romance book as well, and it is held in a town which is known for Halloween and for those fall seasons, so it definitely has that fall time vibe throughout the entire book. It is about this girl who is a witch. When she was younger, like a few years before or something like that, she ended up cursing an ex-boyfriend who broke her heart, and she didn't think that the curse would do anything. So she doesn't think anything of it, and a few years pass, and this ex-boyfriend comes back to town. And when she runs into him, some weird stuff starts happening, like he's actually cursed. Things are like attacking him, like toys, and like just weird stuff is going on around this whole town. And it turns out that when she cursed him, this actually created this ripple effect on the town that she lives in, because it does have they're called key lines that run throughout the bottom of this town, which holds like the town's magic. Since the ex-boyfriend who she cursed, his ancestors were actually some of the main people who put the key lines into the town. Since he is cursed, it is having this huge effect on the rest of the town and the magic that it holds. So they go on to this wild ride trying to figure out how to restore the town, how to get rid of this curse that was placed on him, and at the same time they're kind of rekindling the love that they once had. So it was a very cute book. I really enjoyed the main character in this book. She was very eccentric, very weird, and I thought it was just perfect, and her relationship with this guy is just amazing. I absolutely loved them in this book. The next book or book series that I'm going to be recommending in this video today is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This trilogy is so good. I know it's very popular, especially since the fourth book just came out. This is actually just a trilogy, but the fourth book that came out surrounds the brothers that are in this book. So it doesn't necessarily follow the same plot line that goes on in this book and the other two, but I bought it. I'm definitely going to read that this fall. But if you are new to this author or this series, which most likely you're not because this is everywhere right now, it is about this girl. She's living just this very simple, normal life where she is not wealthy by any means. However, one day her luck changes and this billionaire passes away and he leaves his entire fortune to her. Now, this billionaire is a complete stranger to her. So she is just as confused as everyone else why she was given this fortune, and she has no clue what to do with it. However, there is a catch. She has to move into the house that this billionaire owned and lived in with his 4 grandsons. And his 4 grandsons do not like this girl at all, right off the bat, because she is inheriting basically their inheritance, and they're all confused as well. How did you know our grandpa? Why did he give you all of this money and all these things? And the house is filled with just hidden passageways and riddles and all this fun stuff. So it definitely has that fall vibe, and I really enjoyed this book, this trilogy. It's a very quick, fast-paced, easy read, and it is YA. I really enjoyed this book. It's really fun to see the 4 grandsons and how they interact with the main character, and she's just trying to figure out in this trilogy all these riddles that this house holds and why she was given this chance to have a more successful and very rich life. And there's also a little bit of romance in these books, so you'll get to see the main character also fall in love, which is always fun. The next book I'm going to recommend is There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. This book was turned into a Netflix movie, which I've read this and I watched the movie. And I must say, they're two completely different things. If you watched the movie and you know who like the killer is, I will just tell you right off the bat, I don't think this is a spoiler because I'm not telling you who the killer is, but it is not the same person as who's in the movie. That person who was the killer, that was like a completely new character. This book, if you go into it having seen the movie, you do not know who the killer is. So if that's gonna turn you away, just know that now. It is about this high schooler girl who is just trying to make it through to the end of the school year. And meanwhile, throughout the book, there is this person who's going around killing all the students that she knows. And when this is happening, what I really liked about this book is in between the chapters with the main character, it would have like a short chapter about the next victim. So you'd get to see, and it's very spooky. This book gave me the spooky vibes. Like I would not want to read this at night because it's like my living nightmare of someone breaking into my house and killing me. It definitely felt like a horror movie, and you get to see like these victims, they're just going about their life, and then these weird things start happening, and then all of a sudden they get killed. It was very spooky, and the whole time the main character is trying to figure out what's going on. She's trying to survive, and also they're trying to figure out who this killer is who's going around killing all of the students from her school. Next book I'm going to recommend is How to Survive Your Murder by Danielle Valentine. This book was so enjoyable to read. I read this last year and I really loved it. I loved the whole concept behind it. It's definitely like any scary Halloween horror movie that you could think of a bunch of high schoolers at a Halloween party and mixed with Groundhog Day. The main character in this book, she is the sole witness of her sister's murder trial. So a year prior, her sister was murdered at a Halloween party, and she is the only one who is speaking up and testifying at her sister's murder trial against the guy who she thinks killed her sister. When she is at this courtroom, she ends up getting knocked out when she goes to the bathroom, and when she wakes up, it's 1 year ago, and she's back on Halloween Day, the day her sister was killed. So she kind of has the second chance to save her sister and find out what happened, who was going around, and who went on this killing spree on Halloween. And I just have to say, this book had the biggest plot twist, like the ending, I kid you not, I just was like, when I read it, I was shocked. I was just sitting there and I felt like my brain had exploded and I didn't understand what happened. I had to go back and reread because I was like, how did this happen? And it's crazy. So if you want a really cool, shocking twist, but also kind of like a comedy horror type book, this book is for you. It is awesome and has everything you could possibly want in a horror type movie. What's really funny is the main character, she loves watching horror movies, so she knows all of the cliches of what you shouldn't do. And so every chapter is named after one of those cliches. And I just thought that was so funny because she's like the most level-headed person you could ever meet, and she knows what not to do. So it's really fun to see her trying to go about figuring out what happened on Halloween night and to also save her sister. The next book I'm going to recommend is House of Hollows by Crystal Sutherland. If you want that creepy Halloween type feeling where it's just very eerie and kind of unsettling, this book is for you. It's a very short and quick book, so it's very fast-paced, very quick, easy read. This book, when I read it, I remember just feeling like after I read it, I had to read like a happy romance after it because this book was so freaky in some parts, and it definitely just made me think about the world a little bit differently. It's about this girl her and her three sisters, when they were younger, they ended up disappearing, and then they were returned a month later, and they have no memory of anything or any clues about where they were. And so as they're growing up after this childhood, this traumatic experience, their appearances actually start to change. So each of the three sisters, they had dark hair. They end up getting this like white blonde hair that grows in instead. And their eyes used to be blue, and then they start turning like a super dark brown, like they look like they're black. So their appearance goes like a very complete 180. They look completely different whenever their transformation is complete as they are growing older. And the main character, she's 17, so it's years later, and her older sister goes missing. And after she goes missing, she leaves behind this very cryptic message, and her other sister are trying to figure out what happened to her and what is going on. Meanwhile, some of the secrets and things that happened back whenever they disappeared many years ago start to resurface. So it makes the main character kind of question her whole life and what she's been living. It's a very interesting read. I saw this at Barnes & Noble. It was one of their like monthly picks or something, and I thought the cover was really cool and interesting. I just really liked the graphic on it. The story was very interesting as well. So I definitely recommend this if you want a more of an unsettling type spooky book. The next book I'm recommending is The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. This book is a fantasy, so it's set in this very strange fantasy world, and it took me a while to kind of understand the world, but once I knew what was going on, it picked up from there. It's about this girl who is an undertaker. She's the daughter of the owner of this like funeral parlor where they prepare dead bodies and they get their coffin and everything fixed up just to kind of help with those final rites of passage leading up to a funeral. So they are in charge of cleaning up the bodies and everything that happened in this fantasy world. The other guy in this book, the love interest, he is a marshal in this fantasy world where he patrols the world and he goes and hunts down. They're kind of like zombies, I would say, but they basically take people's souls. They feed off of people's souls, and they leave behind a lot of bodies. And it's kind of this huge issue that's kind of going out of control in this fantasy world. The main character and this marshal, they hate each other. Their personalities just do not mix, and he ends up bringing the bodies to her to prepare. And so they see each other very often, and they just don't like each other. They end up striking up this pen pal relationship without knowing, and they're writing these anonymous letters back and forth. They have no clue it's to each other, the person that they hate the most. And it was just a really cute romance. I loved the relationship that was developing and how vulnerable and genuine they were with each other through their letters. This was definitely a more cozy fantasy read. It wasn't like super high stakes, but it was still a very fun and interesting concept for a fantasy world. The next book I'm recommending is Angelica, Frankenstein Makes Her Match by Sally Thorne. This was a very cute romance book about Frankenstein and just the whole idea behind him. So it follows this girl named Angelica who is Victor Frankenstein's younger sister. And so she helps him with all of his experiments where they're trying to recreate life. And she ends up going with him, and she finds all these pieces of a man. She finds this man's face who she kind of instantly falls in love with it, and she decides she wants to create the love of her life. She ends up piecing together a man just like true Frankenstein nature, and she brings him to life. And so this whole book was just about Angelica. She's trying to figure out what happened to this guy. He's also trying to figure out the mystery of like where he came from and what his life was like previously, because he has no memory whatsoever of the type of life he lived before he ended up dying or how he even died. So it's kind of a mystery. They're trying to figure things out, but at the same time, they are slowly falling in love with each other. So it was a very cute little romance, and it's Frankenstein. So what better book to read in the spookier seasons than Frankenstein? The next book I'm going to talk about is The Grimrose Girls by Laura Pohl. And this book was really interesting, and I really enjoyed this one. It's about these 4 friends who go to this academy, and one of their friends ends up dying. And these other 3 friends are trying to figure out how she was killed, what happened to her and everything. But the interesting twist on this book was, as they're digging into their friend's past and like how she ended up dying at this academy, they come to this conclusion that this school that they all go to is actually cursed. They find out that their friend was not the first dead girl at this academy. So it turns out that every single girl who goes to this academy is actually kind of like a fairy tale princess, and they are cursed with the gruesome endings that happened in these like fairy tale. I'm not explaining this very well. They find out that all of the past murders that happened at the school are actually connected to these fairy tale curses. They are looking into it, and each of the girls follows like a different kind of princess from a fairy tale. Like Cinderella's one girl, Ariel was another, I think Aurora, like Sleeping Beauty, was another. I can't remember the 4th girl, but they all have like their own fairy tale type personality. Each of the girls who have died at this academy have died from one of these curses that happened in these fairy tales. They're very gruesome and very horrifying endings, and these girls are trying to figure out what's going on, how to break the cycles before one of them ends up dying just like their friend did. It was a very cool fairy tale type book, but like the more spooky side of the fairy tale, so the actual fairy tales, they actually don't have happy endings. So this book was very interesting, trying to figure out what girl was which fairy tale and how you could make all those connections. And I really enjoyed it. It was really cool. I know a second book did come out. I haven't read it yet, but there is a second book to this first one. I'm not sure if it follows the same girls. The next book I'm going to recommend is To Best the Boys by Mary Weber. This is a kind of dystopian sort of fantasy type book. This was a really fun and quick, easy read for me. It is YA, so it's very fast paced and very fun to read. So this book is set kind of in a past type timeline. In this world, women, they are not successful. They don't go on to have careers. They are mainly wives that stay at home, and the men are the ones who end up getting to go to college and further their careers. However, in this book, the main character, she's a girl, and she's kind of like a scientist prodigy. She's always wanted to be a scientist. She's extremely intelligent and smart. So in this town, every single year, there is this mysterious letter that gets dropped off to all eligible boys in this town, and they are all entered into this competition. It's this maze that they're supposed to go into, and they have to figure out these riddles. It's kind of survival of the fittest. Not everyone survives or makes it through, so it is more high stakes. Not everyone can make it out alive. If you do end up making it out, then you can earn a scholarship to one of the most prestigious colleges or universities in this little world or this town. Meanwhile, there is this plague or the sickness that is going around town, and it is killing so many people, and her and the main character and her dad are both scientists, and they're trying to figure out what is going on, what's the cure. And so she ends up entering into this contest because she's trying to have the college degree in order to further her scientific advances or her scientific foundings and try to figure out what this curse is or what this plague is in her town. Her and her cousin end up dressing up like boys, and they enter into this contest, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed the characters in this book. I loved the main character, and I also enjoyed some of the boys in this book as well. They were very fun to read about, and it was very interesting to see the power dynamics between men and women, and also to getting to see, you know, how the main character and her cousin fare amongst all the boys and if they can keep up their disguises and make it through the whole maze. It was a very fun book. I enjoyed it a lot, and it took me a while to read this. I actually owned this for probably over a year, and then I kept putting it off because I don't even know why, but once I started reading it, I fell in love with this book. It was so good. I recommend it to anybody who wants a fast-paced fantasy. And the last book or book duology that I'm going to be recommending is the Dance of Thieves duology. This book, I absolutely loved this duology. It definitely gives me that cozy fantasy read that I crave in the fall. If you were wondering, the author, she also wrote the Remnant Chronicles, which I've also read and also loved. So if you've read that series, this is the continuation, but with different side characters in that series. The way this book goes, the main character, she was kind of like a street thief, but she was taken in by the queen and turned into this really amazing guard. She's sent by the queen on a mission to like a nearby territory, and she has to follow through with this mission even though she meets this guy who is kind of the heir to this nearby territory. It's definitely enemies to lovers in this duology, but it was so incredibly good. I loved the relationship between the two characters and getting to see her and her group of guards kind of infiltrate this territory and also learn their ways and try to figure out how to accomplish this mission that they were sent on. Right from the very beginning, you are like just put into the action and everything kind of starts going wrong very quickly. I loved every moment of this duology and I would definitely read them again. And that is it for my fall book recommendations. Obviously, there are so many more books that you could easily read in fall, but these are just the ones that I've read so far that I think would be read really well in fall and just give you that fall feeling. Very cozy, very fun, mystery thrillers, and everything you could possibly want. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it or you got some book recommendations that you can use this upcoming fall. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I do post every single Tuesday, so if you're wondering when I post my videos, every single Tuesday I put a new one up. And I have a lot of fun fall videos coming up that I'm really excited to film and post for you guys. And I also just started a Bookstagram last week. So if you're interested in seeing kind of what I'm doing daily, I've already posted a few times on there and I'm really loving it. I'm really having fun with posting on there. But it is more like behind the scenes stuff from my videos that I'm posting. It is my current reads, so I'll post whatever book I'm reading at the moment. And I'm also posting anytime I go to Barnes & Noble or a bookstore and my little mini book hauls. So if you're interested in seeing any of that, please follow me over there. I do have my account linked down in the description, so if you would like to do that, it is down there for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Happy reading!